It wasn't that long ago that America was beset by the medical malpractice crisis. You know, the one where doctors were going to quit the practice of medicine because insurance premiums were too expensive. Well, whatever happened to this crisis, and does it still exist today? Weekend Magazine's legal expert Tim O'Brien has more on this. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Stacy. In case anyone hasn't noticed, doctors are still practicing medicine, and yes, premiums are still going up. Is there a crisis? Well, the Pennsylvania House of Representatives must think so, since it recently passed a bill placing restrictions on medical malpractice claims. On the other hand, the same bill died in the Senate. My guests this morning are John Gis Pit, president of the Western Pennsylvania Trial Lawyers Association, and Giles Gesa, an attorney who routinely represents doctors in medical malpractice claims. Good morning, John. Morning, Giles. Welcome to Weekend Magazine.
Thanks, Tim.
John, let me start with you. You represent plaintiffs in these types of cases. Is there a medical malpractice crisis where doctors are intimidated by the claims that lawyers like yourself file?
I don't think doctors are ever intimidated, and I guess my answer to whether or not there is a crisis would depend on how you define crisis. If you mean are there doctors sometimes who get sued when they shouldn't get sued, I would have to answer yes. If you define crisis as patients having valid claims and winning those claims against doctors, then in my mind there is no crisis.
Does the litigation that you file on behalf of injured patients affect how doctors practice medicine, and in any way do that so that it reduces the quality of medical care?
I don't think it reduces the quality of medical care. I think there would be many that would argue that it perhaps increases the cost of care. Others would argue that it's good that doctors run many tests now because they know that somebody perhaps may be checking on them.
Giles, from a doctor's point of view, is there still a crisis? 2 years ago, all we heard was about doctors leaving the practice of medicine. They couldn't afford their premiums. We don't hear that today. What's happening?
Tim, there is in the minds of the doctors a definite crisis. And maybe we don't hear it as much anymore because it's something that has been said so many times. But the physicians are leaving the practice. Physicians are encouraging their children not to go into the practice of medicine. And also physicians who are reaching an age where maybe they would like to slow down, instead of slowing down, they're leaving the practice.
Is it the malpractice lawsuits, or is it the insurance industry that's at fault? In other words, are the premiums so high because the insurance industry is making so much money, or because there are so many lawsuits filed?
That is an area of controversy, Tim, and the plaintiff's bar would say that it's the insurance industry. But in Pennsylvania, we have a physicians-owned insurance company, and that insurance company is a not-for-profit insurance company, and still the premiums are going up and are high.
All right. In many of the states where there has been tort reform, where they've passed legislation to limit recovery, remove punitive damages, premiums still go up. So what benefit is there in having any tort reform if that was the goal?
Well, I don't think we've had a sufficient time where tort reform has been enforced to see how it works. And in many of those states, it's been challenged, and the constitutionality has been questioned. So I don't think we've had sufficient time with tort reform.
All right, John. What about that? You know as a plaintiff's lawyer that there are many more lawsuits, that the damage awards in some cases are very high. Isn't there a legitimate point here that perhaps this has gotten out of control and something should be done?
No, Tim, I go back to my original answer. If you're talking about an invalid claim, then the patient shouldn't get anything. But I think the important thing to remember here is that compensation is only paid on a medical claim under one of two circumstances. Either the doctor's own insurance company voluntarily agrees to pay it, or an impartial, unbiased jury says that the doctor made a mistake.
All right, let me put that back to Giles then. You have an injured person who has been injured as the result of a doctor's negligence. Why shouldn't that person be able to recover any damages that a jury would award, or any amount of money that an insurance company is willing to settle for?
Tim, we have no problem with those cases where there are injuries caused by malpractice or negligence. Those people should recover. But the problem we have are there are so many claims filed which have no merit. And you can look at the statistics. They range anywhere from 60 to 70% of the cases which are filed are closed without payment. That's the problem we have. We have to some way get the non-meritorious cases out of the system.
Well, how do the non-meritorious cases cost so much money so that they're a part of the crisis? In other words, the increase in premiums doesn't result from the non-payment of claims, does it?
Well, I think Giles has a point that there certainly are costs involved in even paying attorney's fees in non-valid claims. I think Giles and I would agree that the bad claims should be gone, the good claims should have no limits.
Quick wrap up, will anything happen in Pennsylvania in the next year in terms of reform? Yes or no? Anything?
I doubt it.
Giles?
I hope so.
All right. John, Giles, thank you for joining us.